Fair warning, there will be spoilers in this video. I'm going to go ahead and link above in the right corner to how you can skip to certain parts of the video that might be what you're looking for without seeing the spoilers. There will be parts that you can just listen to and not look at the cutscenes if you want to. And I'm going to link that up below. Or up below. I'm going to link that up above. And then there's also going to be a part that if you just want to see the final review of the game, and if you should buy it or not, then I'm going to link that above right now. Appreciate y'all. What's up, y'all? It's BJ Third, and today we're going to be doing a review over Mafia Definitive Edition. So when I decided to make a YouTube channel, I figured one of the biggest things I would be doing is every time I play these story mode games, I'm going to give you guys my perspective, what I thought about the actual game. So maybe if you want to buy the game yourself and you want to see what other people think of it, you don't even got to watch through my whole series, you can just check out the reviews. But yeah, so I'm going to do this review over the game as a whole, not necessarily as a remake, because I'd never played the version that came out in 2002. But I feel like looking at this version that came out in 2020, I can still give you a good perspective of the game in general. So, just getting things started off, let's start talk about the story in general. I felt like it had a really good length for the way that the game goes about telling the story. It goes by chapters. It has 20 total chapters, and it takes about 8 to 10 hours to play through. And it's not necessarily like open world or objective driven, but it's just straight up gonna guide you through what you gotta do, and every time you finish that, the mission's over, and it takes you continuing through the dialogue and then into the next mission, which I personally like. I do like open world games, but I definitely liked this, especially for this Mafia game. So for length, I'm gonna go ahead and give it an A. In terms of interest level, the story was phenomenal. I was very invested into it, but at the end, I wasn't necessarily left craving more. I was a little shocked by the end, I can't lie, but I would say the story in general was good, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a B as we move on to the next session, which is going to happen to be the character development. And we're going to kind of keep it simple with just talking about Tommy, Don Cerielli. We're going to talk about Sam and Polly a little bit, but mainly we're going to focus on Tommy's development as a character throughout the story. So Tommy kind of got roped into this whole Mafia world at the beginning of the story when he finds Sam and Polly, and they get in his car and tell him to drive them away from Morello's gang, and he gets them away, and later on Morello's gang ends up jumping him for driving them away, and he's running away from Morello's gang members, or Mafia members, and he pulls up to Salieri's, and they protect him, and then he asks if he can work for him, basically. That's how he gets involved in this world of the Mafia. And throughout the story, we see him being extremely loyal. It's almost like he's a yes man for most of the story and some of the situations he gets put into. He kind of starts out when he has to initially start killing people. He's very hesitant about it, but more towards the end of the story, you'll see he becomes more of a hitman. But he is extremely loyal to all his friends in his story and wants to make sure that he can take care of them. But like I was saying, he kind of has this dilemma between killing people and not wanting to kill anybody who's innocent in terms of the war that's going on between Don Cerielli and Don Morello. We see this in situations like when he's about to kill Sergio's wife with the car bomb, and he tries to stop it, but he can't in time. He initially was trying to kill Sergio, which he was fine with. And then quickly after, we see him in the restaurant with the waitress, and he stops Polly from shooting the waitress. But then Sergio's able to get away, which causes more problems later on. They know they need to take care of Sergio. But when it comes to later on in that chapter, you see him, as soon as he gets Sergio pinned and cornered, he takes care of him right away. So throughout the story, we see that Tommy has more morals than everyone else in the world of Mafia, but he still kind of advances more towards being a hitman as the story goes on, as we see with Turnbull. So this is the first time that we actually see Tommy kill somebody that's noteworthy, that's not actually a bad guy or part of Morello's crew. This guy, Turnbull, is actually like just trying to make the city a better place in general. And we see Tommy realize this after he kills him, and see that he regrets it when his wife starts talking about the change that he was trying to make. And you can actually see that Tommy's starting to regret the life that he's living, and this is the first time that we see him possibly wanting out of this Mafia lifestyle. Another example we end up seeing in this a little bit earlier is the example with Frank, when he lets Frank's family leaves after he's betrayed the Don and had basically set him up for failure, but kind of knew that something was going to happen that would allow them to get out of this scenario easily. So I guess it wasn't all bad in terms of Frank, but Tommy did decide to let him go. But we still see situations after in terms of like Morello and the way that Tommy takes care of Morello, which is extremely violent in all reality and way overkill. That we see he's kind of more towards Hitman and the dark side, if you will. There's a point throughout the story where he realizes he can really only trust Paulie and Sam. So what he ends up doing is going against the Don because he feels as if he can't really trust the Don. And Paulie's just this big score, and Tommy's not for it initially, and Sam's definitely not for it. But he ends up going and doing it with Paulie, and they end up being successful in getting this big score. But then they find out that Sam betrayed them, Sam snitched on them, told the Don, and Paulie gets killed. So we see a little bit of character development in Sam, who throughout the story you kind of notice he starts to get, for lack of a better term, sus. He seems like he's not really for you guys, and it turns out in the end that he really wasn't. With Sam, we see a lot of situations where he ends up getting hurt, and Tommy and Paulie are the ones to save him, or Tommy's the one to save Sam and Paulie. A whole lot of situations like that, and he's extremely grateful, which makes it kind of disappointing that he would be the one to betray Tommy, especially because one of the things that he told the Don was that Tommy let the girl from the brothel go when he was the one who asked Tommy if he would be willing to do that for him. So I feel like Sam's development is a little bit confusing, but it also kind of makes sense because he's seen as very money hungry and he really just wants to climb up in this world. He's willing to betray his friends if that's what it does to get better. Paulie, on the other hand, we don't necessarily see too much character development with him. He's the whole time, throughout the whole story, all he cares about is his boys and being goofy. He's kind of comedic relief for a lot of the time. There are very few points where we see him get serious. A lot of times it's when he's actually very drunk. And especially in that car ride home after the race that Tommy wins, he's belligerently drunk and he's talking about how he feels about having a family in the future and how sad he feels just in general. Which eventually is what leads to him deciding to do the bank robbery, which is what ends up being his downfall, but also see how good of friends and how much he trusted Sam and how much he trusted Tom. So in terms of Sarah, who's our wife throughout the story, she starts out being very hard-nosed, a very tough character, if you will, but she has this soft spot for us throughout the story. And there's a very big theme of wives who don't ask questions and how important that is in this lifestyle that they live. So when they come home, they can just stay away from all the darkness that they have to go throughout the day. But eventually as the story moves on, and especially in the Turnbull scenario, because Turnbull was fighting for women's rights, she starts to ask more and more questions, and she really wants Tommy to get out of this lifestyle, especially because she's been around this lifestyle her whole life. Her dad was involved with the Mafia as well, so she really wants to see Tommy get out of this lifestyle. And you can tell throughout different scenes, like the one that's playing currently, how sad it makes her to watch Tommy go through this life. In terms of the Don, the main character change that we see with him throughout the story is his violence level and how he takes care of people like Carlos and how he describes how he wants Morello to die. Everything he talks about is getting more violent. Another big change is how he kind of wanted to protect his neighborhood, and one of the big things, one of the rules he gave Tommy when he comes in is we don't deal with the hard stuff. And when we get to the end of the story, he starts stealing cocaine. And he's not telling Tommy, he's not telling Paulie. He might be telling Sam, since, you know, Sam's been working closer with him than we initially knew. But he's kind of strayed away from his values, and he's all about the money at this point in time. And that's what kind of leads Tommy to decide that I don't want to work for the Don anymore. And if he has to go to jail, I guess he has to go to jail. So in terms of character development, I think that Tommy has the most character development, as he should as the main character, and the supporting cast around him has minor character development, which I think is fair for this story and fair for the world that they live in. So I'm going to go ahead and give the character development, I think, an A. And then the last part that's going to be important to this story section of rating the game is going to be accuracy to time period. You can look at the outfits, you look at the cars, you look at the guns they're using. It's extremely accurate. There's really no debate about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and give them an A. Even the types of people that you see in the area around, I went majority of the time without seeing African Americans in the story mode. We're in Little Italy in the 1930s. That's how it's going to be for the most part. So yes, the story is extremely accurate. Go ahead and give it the A. So moving on to the next part, we're going to go ahead and talk about mechanics. Those of you that were watching me play the game, you know my least favorite mechanic about the game is the way that driving is handled. It's extremely slidey when you're driving, which I feel like may be accurate to the time period. It's very hard to stop. It's very hard to make turns in general. Driving is not a fun experience for me, I would say, in the game. It was a new experience. It kind of reminds me of GTA 4 a little bit, but driving was not my favorite experience. So because of that, we're going to go ahead and give it a D, which is low, but for a person like me, and I'm the one who's rating it, I like to drive fast. I like to be able to maneuver well, especially the fact that I couldn't drive on a motorcycle made me very upset. So because of that, I'm going to have to keep it low. Continuing on the theme of driving, using the minimap, I like it a lot. There's not too many things where it's like, the yellow search areas where it's hard to find places. The GPS system is pretty good. You don't actually have to look at the minimap. It will pop up with arrows on the actual screen. It kind of looks like street signs, so that's pretty useful. It will also show the shortcuts you can take. So when you're being chased by people, you have to take shortcuts to get away from the cops or whatever, or whoever you're running from. And then the only thing that I'm not necessarily a fan of is I wish it showed the distance you were away from your waypoint. Besides that, I think that the mechanic of using the minimap is pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and give that an A. Or B, actually, I'll say B, because there could be improvements, but there's not much that they can improve. In terms of movement, there's not too much wrong with it. It could personally be my PlayStation controller, but I did feel like sprinting was hard to continuously do. You hold down left stick to do it. I would sometimes find my characters stop sprinting, which was unfortunate in some of the chase scenes filmed throughout the video. But besides that, I felt like movement was pretty good. It's very simple. The controls aren't normally what you would expect, but once you get used to them, you get used to them. So because of that, we'll just go ahead and throw it at a B. Nothing spectacular, nothing crazy. So then we move into the combat system, and one of the first things is, of course, going to be cover. Getting in and out of cover is actually really effective. You just press X to get into cover on a PlayStation. I'm not sure what it is on Xbox. I think it's A, I guess. It's very easy to get into cover. You always stay behind it. It's hard to accidentally fall out of cover. And then there's also systems that allow you to switch from side to side cover and also orbit around cinder blocks or whatever. So you can always stay stealthy, which is a decently important aspect of this game. The only unfortunate thing about the cover, which I'll get into a little bit later because it has to do with the ammo and the shooting aspects of the game, but it's impossible to aim out of the cover, which, unless they're really close to you and you have a shotgun, which I'll tell you why is a problem later. But so yeah, cover's getting about a B. Or, yeah, it's about a B. Anyways, in terms of shooting, because I know you guys love to shoot and flex your aim, shooting is, I would say it's relatively easy to aim. The guns have a lot of recoil, which does tend to be a problem in some scenarios, especially when you have the Tommy gun and you don't have a lot of ammo. But shooting is fairly easy. The thing about shooting is you can actually change the amount of aim assist throughout the game, so it fits anybody's playstyle, however you want to play, which is good, and it's pretty unique, I think. I've never seen a game, or I've never played a game that you've actually been able to change the amount of aim assist, so I thought that was a unique feature that they added in. Besides that, I would say Tommy gun's one of the best guns in the game. It's hard to shoot with at times just because of the recoil. Besides that, it's a pretty good gun. There's a marksman rifle, which is extremely accurate, of course, and it has scope on it. That can be good to use, but it's hard in close range situations, of course. The shotguns are pretty good in close range situations, and then the pistols are usually your main weapons because of the problem we're going to next, which is ammo. The main thing you're going to find is pistol ammo. So for shooting, we're going to go ahead and give this game a solid B. So one of the biggest problems I have with this game is the ammo. You can get about 150 bullets for like guns like your Tommy gun, like 15, 20 bullets for your shotguns, 20 for the marksman rifles, 21 for pistols. I believe that's the max you can hold at a time. You can only have 2 guns, and there are ammo boxes around the map, and the enemies do drop ammo, but they just don't drop a lot of ammo. So it's very difficult to make sure you have enough ammo when you continuously have enemies fighting through. So when you're playing on difficulties like hard and whatnot, it's actually going to be hard, mainly because you don't have enough ammo to fight these guys, which is the main problem. So specifically for that reason, I'm giving ammo a C, which I wasn't even going to make an aspect of the grading thing, but the ammo just makes me so mad, so I had to make it a thing. In terms of fighting people in the game, things like sneaking up and knocking enemies out is pretty easily. You just press circle and take care of them. It does it pretty quick, and you can actually hide the bodies, which is useful in certain situations. It's not that useful of a feature, but it can be done throughout the game to actually help you out a little bit. But in terms of actual fighting throughout the game, it's relatively simple. There's nothing more than a dodge button, a counter button. You can throw regular attacks and you can throw heavy attacks. That's about it. And really, that's all you need. It ends up being pretty fun when you're fighting large groups of people. Sometimes you can pick up planks and bats and use them when you're fighting. Besides that, it's simple and it's effective and it's pretty fun. So I'm going to go ahead and give fighting, except for my very first experience, an A. The very last thing that we're going to go ahead and rate is going to be the graphics of the game. Which in the cinematic scenes, such as like the intro and all the talking scenes and all the dialogue, it looks amazing, honestly. I played it on a small TV and I played it on a monitor. You can tell the difference on the monitor. There's a huge difference, but the game looks beautiful. In terms of just playing it throughout the actual game, it looks really good. I honestly had no complaints. I took a look at what it looked like in 2002, and of course it's 2002, but oh my gosh, this game 18 years later looks beautiful, as to be expected. Very impressed, and gotta give it an A. So with my favorite parts being the story and the graphics and being a fan of shooting in the game, I ended up giving this a B-. I'm not necessarily sure what that's going to stand on the scale. This is just going to be the reference point for future games, but I think that a B- or a B is fair for this game. It's really good, it has a really good story, it looks amazing, it's fun to play, and it keeps you invested. So in terms of what I recommend you getting it, absolutely. I think it's 100% worth getting for the price. It's not too expensive. I believe it's $40. So if you guys are looking for a quick game to play, if you don't have a lot of time, maybe you're working, maybe you're in school, and you want to have fun and play something that's not too long, not too time consuming, that you can still enjoy, I think Mafia Definitive Edition would be great. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I'll catch y'all next time. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, and comment what y'all thought about the video down below. Comment if you like the style of how I reviewed this. And yeah, I'll catch y'all next time. Appreciate it.